Hello, and welcome to MCM Birmingham. Winds howling.
Thank you for coming in to chat with us. How are you finding Comic Con so far?
Yeah, I love it. I've been to MCM, Birmingham once before, about 5 years ago, I think, and I've been to MCM London 3 or 4 times now, so it's very familiar to me. And I go to conventions and other places as well. So it's a world I never went to a convention until I was invited to one as a guest, and it was a whole new world for me. I was just like, wow, I knew these things existed, but I'd never been to one. So it's like going to Disneyland as a kid, but I was 49 or whatever I was when I first went.
So you're planning on going to more of the conventions in the future there?
I hope so. Yeah, I enjoy them. The thing I really love about these conventions is that, unlike, not that I go to a lot of sporting events or anything like that, but unlike some other things that you might do, everybody who's coming to a convention like this is coming to celebrate the stuff that they really love. There's no inherent, us versus them or anything like that. I get the feeling that it's very much just a big party of people who are loving their nerdiness, and everybody's a nerd. Everybody's a nerd. Even if you're a car freak and you like engines, you're a geek about car engines, whatever it is, everybody's a geek of some kind. But I love these things because I'm a nerd or a geek or a dork or whatever it is. I don't let it out very often. So when I come to things like this, I kind of get to talk about, stuff that I love and be around other people who are, interested in Dungeons and Dragons and, things like that. So it's fun. I love it.
Awesome. Obviously the Witcher is the thing you're mainly known for this Geralt. How has that experience been? Because that game, the third one in particular, blew up so enormously. You've got the TV show, you voicing an animation as well, which is coming out next year. How is it just being with that character for that?
It's been a blessing, to be honest. In many, many different ways. The average actor goes from job to job to job to job, and they may play the same part in a play or something like that several times in their lifetime or not. And I think it's very rare for an actor to have the opportunity to play the same character for 20 years. It's because I recorded, it'll be 20 years in February, I think, since I started recording Witcher 1. 2005 is when we started recording Witcher 1. So that's just a rarity for actors. So it's been a blessing in terms of having the longevity of the relationship with the character and getting to know him deeply over a long period of time. And I feel very much like Geralt is just part of me. And just for example, when I first started voicing Geralt, doing his voice was very difficult. It was really challenging for me to go down that far in my register and to go that raspy. And now I just walk around the house, talk to myself as Geralt. He's part of me now, so it's wonderful. And if it weren't for The Witcher, I probably wouldn't be invited to events like this. So it's opened doors. It's probably closed some doors as well, because the industry does like to stereotype a little bit. So I always did get brought in for the rough anti-hero type character voice. But since The Witcher 3 in particular came out, I think sometimes when people in casting are looking at me as a possibility, they go, nah, he always sounds too much like Geralt. So I may be missing out on a few things now and then because of that. But yeah, I love it. It's been a blessing.
So if someone's just starting out with voice acting, what advice would you give them, or what advice would you give yourself before you did Geralt the first time?
Well, Geralt was my first voice job, so it's a different story there. I just went in for an audition, and then it gradually over time became the big thing that it is. A good friend of mine, Ben Starr, he plays Clive in Final Fantasy 16, and his experience going into that was totally different from my experience, because he knew at, I think, the final audition, he knew what he was auditioning for. He didn't at first, but then at some point it clicked and he was like, oh my God, if I get this, I'm going to be Clive. And before his involvement was ever announced, he was talking with the promoters about, with the developers about, how he could be involved in the release of the game and all this. So, his experience was that he knew it was going to be a big deal before the game ever hit the shelves, as it were. For me, I did Witcher 1 and it developed a little cult following. And then Witcher 2 came out and it was a, bigger deal. But I don't, like you say, I didn't expect Witcher 3 to blow up like it did. So that was a whole different experience for me. In terms of advice for people trying to break into voice acting, several things. Lately, the advice I've been giving to people is don't be a dick. Because it's really easy, especially if you have a little bit of success. How do you define success? I don't know. But it can be very easy to let certain aspects of the industry go to your head. Don't let it do that, because if you do that, then sometimes you get a little snobby about things, and that just doesn't play well to anybody. Nobody wants to work with anybody who's being a bit of a dick. I always like to say, if you don't already, get some actor training. Having a nice voice, having a good voice is cool. It's great. And that may serve you very well, but it's called voice acting for a reason. So get some actor training. And if for no other reason, then the fact that most people who are directing voice actors in games are people who come from actor training themselves. They're actors or the directors, or they are people who speak a certain language. It's the language of the performing arts. So there's certain vocabulary that you develop through training that if you don't have it, you could still probably understand it, get it, but it's just better if you really understand what it means. And you got to be an actor as well. So I always say get some actor training, even if it's just like a 6-week course on Saturdays for 2 hours or whatever, just something that gets you up and working with other actors and with directors and working with a text and breaking down a script and making character choices and all those things. I think that's really important at the beginning of a career.
Did you notice any difference in your vocal performance process for this animation versus the games?
Yeah, it was really interesting doing the animation. I did Geralt's voice. I suppose where it became particularly interesting for me was when I was called in to do what are called the efforts. So we'd recorded all the lines, or most of the lines. Right. I had a Super Pepsi before, and it's now saying hello. So I was brought back in after we had done most of the dialogue, and we were basically doing ADR, which is when you watch the images and you voice over the images and stuff like that. And it was, Geralt jumping from stone to stone or whatever it was, or Geralt during a fight, and I'm having to make the sounds as I'm watching the animation run. And that was interesting. Partly, I've done that before, as that wasn't new to me, but it was because it's anime. There are kind of particular expectations about how certain efforts are communicated, both through the animation and through the voice that helps to tell that story. So that was really interesting. But the voice itself is just my Geralt voice. It's, it is what it is.
Geralt of Rivia. So there must have been a few different versions of
Geralt as well now, like, on stream, and got video games and anime. Have you had any conversations with people like Henry Cavill or it's Liz?
Yeah.
It's got you're taking it. You met any of those guys? Had any conversations about?
I've met Henry. He's really sweet. He's really lovely. Henry DM'd me out of the blue on Instagram and invited me to the London premiere of season 1 of the Witcher Netflix series. And at first I didn't believe him. I thought it was somebody putting me on. So I kind of wrote back to him swearing and saying, fucking leave me alone. And he said, no, it's really me. I'll prove it to you. So anyways, he invited me to the premiere and I went and we had a really lovely conversation. He kind of made me part of his entourage, as it were. I don't think Henry has an entourage, but like his family were there. And, some of his friends were there. Some of the other cast, I got to meet Freya and Anya. And we just had a nice chat. He invited me into this room that was for him and his family and his close friends to kind of get away from the main group of everybody after there was like the after party. There was this little room off to the side where Henry kind of hung out a bit. And he sent his PA in to find me and I went in and he handed me a beer and said, I want to talk all things Geralt. And so we spent about an hour just chatting about the Witcher world and about Superman and about comic books and, Tolkien and all kinds of cool stuff. He's a really, really lovely guy. Liam, I have not met. I don't expect to. But if we do, that'd be great. If he wants to say hi, I'd be very happy to say hi to him. I don't expect him to ask me for any advice or anything back then. He's got to make it his own, It's good. So, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he does. He'll be the third. I mean, I'm not the only Geralt who voices Geralt. Not the only actor who voices Geralt. There's a French Geralt. There's a Polish Geralt. There's a Russian Geralt. There's a Japanese Geralt. So I'm not the only voice of Geralt in the world, but I'm the originator of that particular sound for the game. So yeah, somebody I met who hardly anybody mentions really, but is Peter Kenny. Peter Kenny does the audiobooks, the Witcher audiobooks, and he has a totally different take on Geralt. He decided that because Geralt in the Witcher world is from the Northern Realms. So he decided that Geralt would be a Northerner. So I can't remember if it's it's not a Geordie. It's not Yorkshire per se, but it's kind of more of a Sheffield kind of twang that he gives Geralt. And it's really interesting. It's good. It's really fun. But he's another Geralt.
A lot. We've talked obviously a bit about voice acting. A lot of the video game stuff now tends to be mocap as well. Have you done any of that?
Not for The Witcher. No, I did. I did do some facial capture for. I think it was a promotional video for Gwent. I did that for The Witcher world. I did full performance capture for the role of Nightingale in Alan Wake 2. And that was interesting. That was fun. I did all kinds of weird stuff for that. I had to do a full facial capture with all these cameras, and I had to make all these faces, and they captured my face doing all these faces. And then I also had to do a full dental capture. I had to go to this specialist dentist. Can't remember where it was, near Liverpool Street in London. And they took all these special pictures of my teeth. And so Nightingale has my teeth. This is the oddest thing ever. And I also had to stand in this big ball full of cameras, naked except for a thong, literally thong underwear. And they took pictures of my whole body. So the Nightingale that you see wandering naked through Alan Wake 2 is my body, but hearted up. They made me uglier than I really am, I hope. So that was fun. And then we did a full few days. Yeah, I think we were in the motion capture volume for 2 days with the full suit and the head rig and everything, recording the lines and the voice and the movement and everything all at the same time. It was really good fun.
You? Fans love your iconic Geralt voice. Which non-English version of Geralt do you feel comes closer to the capturing his essence? Like you mentioned about it, but like others.
Yeah, well, to be quite honest, I think I've only heard the Polish and the German actors do their thing with Geralt. And it's really hard for me to pick out one that I think I like better. What I love about what they're called in games is localization. So not always, but in The Witcher, we recorded the English voice first. And then everybody else had to try to match the timing of the English recording. But they had to put their own spin on it. So, the German Geralt, jokes that work in English don't necessarily work in another language. And phrases that everybody who speaks English as a native would understand, or most people would understand, those phrases don't work in other languages as well. They have their own things that work for them. And so I think and I've done some localization. I've done, where particularly when the original voice is Japanese or Korean. I did some Korean localization. So I'm recording the English and I have to match the Korean actor's performance. You're always trying to match the other actor's performance, but put your own cultural spin on the character. And so I find that really fascinating because the German Geralt, I think, sounds, this is going to sound stereotypical, but it just is, I suppose. The German Geralt sounds snappier, harder edges to me. The Polish Geralt, that actor had a whole different approach. They sound much more poetic to me. I speak a little bit of German. I studied German in high school. I speak no Polish whatsoever. So all I'm really responding to is the feel of the language that I'm hearing, the feel of the performance. But I think that's fascinating. It's how a different actor in a different language and therefore different culture, how they interpret this character. Who is this supposedly emotionless monster hunter guy in Japanese? I've heard the Japanese guy, I did very briefly, and it's very Japanese, but it's like, it's just fascinating to me, I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question. It doesn't really, because I didn't tell you my favorite. I'm kind of explaining localization, but I did have some, this has happened several times actually. I'll post something on social media and somebody will come back and say, you're all right, but I prefer the Polish voice or I prefer the German voice. I've had both of those. And I got into this argument with, I wasn't trying to argue with the guy from Poland, and he just wouldn't let it go. And I was like, hey, look, man, you can love the Polish voice. That's okay. I don't mind. He's a good actor. Yeah, enjoy it. And it's your language anyway, so love it. I don't care. Don't stop yelling at me on Twitter.
So like with Witcher 4 continuing, which will no longer be the protagonist, what's your thoughts of that? Like you're no longer the lead character of the franchise.
Well, I did go online and I said something about this, and then I got slapped by CD Projekt because I don't know how true it is. I went off a rumor. I thought I'd seen somebody from CD Projekt say that Geralt will be in Witcher 4, but he won't be the main character. I don't actually know if that's true now, because they came back and they went, we haven't put anything out there. Don't say anything. So the truth is, the answer to your question is, I don't know what it's going to be. I have ideas. I thought I had an idea what it was. And then I was kind of basically told, we haven't told anybody what it is. So where you got that information, we don't know. But I think it might be from a really, really old statement that somebody who no longer works for CD Projekt actually put out about 3 years ago. So Witcher 4 is a complete mystery to me. I actually don't know.
Yeah, because there's a teaser image with a mask for it, and people are speculating it'll be Ciri as the protagonist for the sequel.
Well, that would make sense because in the books, Ciri visits different worlds and things like that. I always thought that would be a cool Witcher 4 would be to follow Ciri's journey when she goes off and visits different worlds and stuff like that. I think that would make some sense, but I have no idea if that's actually what it's going to be or not. That was a conversation I had with somebody from CD Projekt long time ago, and we were both trying to kind of, surmise what the next Witcher might be if there was to be another Witcher. And I mentioned that idea that it would be about Ciri, and that person kind of went, maybe. But we also talked about a Witcher origin story, or we talked about, other things. So goodness knows. Because they teased a medallion as well, which looks very much like a lynx. The School of the Lynx doesn't show up anywhere in the books or in the games thus far. So who knows?
I think on website, they said that the release date for Witcher 4, it's not got a title, is December 2025. So you won't be approached for voice acting role if I think Geralt will be featured in it at all.
I don't know. I mean, the truth is I can't answer the question because I've signed an NDA. So even if I did know, I would have to lie to you.
There was outside of The Witcher, there was another huge, massive game that you were slightly involved in, which Baldur's Gate 3 was part.
Yeah.
How was that experience? Because I know a lot of Baldur's Gate players are here.
Yeah. It was great. I loved it. I recorded for less than an hour for the game for Bali. I think he had like 23 lines or something like that we recorded. And but I was just thrilled to be part of it. I didn't even know it was recording. I didn't know it was in development. But I was at a gaming event, and I ran into Neil Newbon, who I knew from other things. We were already familiar with each other, and we were chatting, and we were talking about Dungeons and Dragons, and I was talking about how much I loved Neverwinter Nights and the old Baldur's Gate games and stuff like that, and Icewind Dale and all those things. And he just kind of stood there nodding at me. And I was like, what? And he just went, you might get a call from me next week. And I was like, okay, what's going on? And he said, well, you didn't hear it from me. God. We're recording Baldur's Gate 3, and we have been for some time. And there are some minor but important characters who have not been cast yet. And you'd be great for some of them. So I'm going to put you in touch with the casting department and see if we can get you into the game. And I was just like, yeah, please. Yes, I'd love to be in Baldur's Gate 3. So he did. He put me in touch. And I had several conversations with several different people. And then, in the end, I was cast as Ball. And I was thrilled because he's a really cool character. Yeah. So that's how that came about.
So we've talked about your work. What sort of stuff do you enjoy? What sort of TV shows, video game? I mean, you mentioned videos. What sort of TV shows do you watch?
Well, there's what I like to watch and what I end up watching. I'm married, and bless her, my wife likes to watch stuff that I just end up watching because she wants to watch it. And it's not what I would pick, but I often end up enjoying it. So what have we been watching? We've been watching something called The Bump lately. Do you know it?
Yes, it's an Australian on BBC.
Yeah, and it's really good fun. I would never have chosen to watch it. And the first episode, I was kind of looking at my wife going, really? Do we have to? Because I like fantasy. I like action. I'm kind of, I don't know, stereotypically male, I guess, in that I like things where things are blowing up and people are dying and killing, or where, dwarves are running around with hobbits. And, I love all that stuff. But I also just like good acting. I like a good story. And The Bump has proved to be actually a really enjoyable TV series. So I can highly recommend The Bump. I don't even know what it's on.
It's BBC.
Is it? Yeah. So BBC iPlayer, maybe you can find it there. The Bump. There's another Australian show actually called Calling from Accounts.
Yes.
That's really fun. I really enjoyed that. But sometimes my wife picks things that I just like. Call the Midwife. Great show. I do actually enjoy it, but I don't love it. It's a bit too sickly sweet for me, but my wife loves it. So I'm happy to watch it with her. What's the one with the surrogate mothers and all that stuff? I can't remember what it's called all of a sudden, but I just call it the Misery Fest because it's just one horror after another visited upon these women, and I had to stop watching it. We were in season 3 or 4 or whatever it was of that Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I watched like season 1 and season 2 with my wife, and I was just like, oh, this is horrible stuff. It's just, I felt so bad for these people. And then by the time we got to season 3, I just couldn't handle it anymore. I can only take so much of that kind of, this could actually happen horror. I couldn't do it anymore. So I said, I'm sorry, I'm going to leave you to your Misery Fest, and I'm going to go and play some Baldur's Gate 3. So I had to walk away from that one. I just couldn't do it anymore. Not because it was bad. It was great. It's a great story. It was just hitting so hard. I was like, I can't. Yeah.
Thank you very much. You've been amazing.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.